thank you to everyone for joining us for our webinar today. It's our last webinar in our series of 4. So yeah, thanks to all of you who've been here for every single one of them. So today we'll be focused on engineering. So again, not really specific to a specific type of engineering, anything from mechanical engineering to biomedical engineering. And we'll be going over everything from important high school courses to take, and then we'll talk a little bit about extracurriculars. And then after that, we have Kunal Jere here from UT Austin, where he's a mechanical engineering major. And so we'll have a sort of Q&A with him. And then at the very end, you guys will be able to type or chat us questions, and we'll go ahead and respond about that. That can be anything relating to like engineering specific, Westwood or high school in general. And then one quick note. So when if you ever have a question, you see there should be like a Q&A on the bottom of your screen. So just go ahead and click that and type your question in there, and we'll answer it during our Q&A session with the student panel. Okay.
So hi, I'm Ishan. I'm a rising high school senior, and my plan is to major in either computer science or electrical and computer engineering.
Hello, my name is Sohan Agnihotri. I'm also a rising senior at Westwood High School, and my plan is to major in automotive or aerospace engineering.
Hi, I'm Anida Merchant. I will be a freshman at UT Austin this fall, and I'm studying mechanical engineering.
Hi, I'm Lipika, and I'm a rising senior at Westwood. I plan to major in astronomy and mechanical engineering.
And I'm Rohan, and I'm also going to be a rising senior at Westwood. Okay, so again, just to kind of review the general structure of this webinar. First, we're just going to talk about high school courses and extracurriculars for anyone interested in engineering, and then we'll have a guest speaker from UT Austin, and finally, we will have a Q&A with our student panel. Okay.
So if you're interested in engineering, there are a couple different elective tracks you can take. And the first one would be the engineering track. And so that starts with Introduction to Engineering Design, where you basically like go through the engineering design process. You learn about like engineering principles, and then you do a bit of like 3D modeling. Your sophomore year, you would take Principles of Engineering, and that is a more hands-on course, and so you tend to work with like electronics and like robotics components, and you do a bit of like coding to like program motors and stuff. And then junior year, you will pick between digital electronics, aerospace engineering, and civil engineering and architecture. So digital electronics is mostly like electrical engineering. They do like breadboarding and like coding and stuff. Aerospace engineering is working with like engines and rockets and things like that. And then civil engineering and architecture mainly focuses on like buildings and structures and those types of things. And then your senior year, you will take engineering design and development, which is a basically full year-long project. At the beginning of the year, you and a few other students will come up with like a problem that you see in society or like in the world in general. And it can be like a small problem, it can be a big problem, really whatever you want it to be. And then you spend the rest of the year designing a solution to that problem. You'll like prototype your solution, and then you will like present it to a panel of industry partners. So like people in the tech community in Austin. And then another elective strand that is starting just this year is the robotics courses. So Principles of Robotics is just like you're gonna like learn the basics of robotics, and in that course and in Robotics 1, you'll basically be building robots to basically be able to compete in, I don't know if they will compete, but it's like to solve the challenges that are presented in the first tech challenge, which is a type of robotics competition. And then in Robotics 2 and Robotics Engineering Design and Presentation, you'll be building robots to perform the challenges set in first robotics competitions. And so those robots are generally bigger than the ones in First Tech Challenge. They tend to get like 3 feet by 4 feet by however tall every year. So that's actually a really cool course that I wish I could have taken. And then lastly, you can take computer science classes. And that's really useful just because in engineering, like in certain types of engineering, you definitely will need to use computer science. And even in some of the courses in the engineering course plan, like you do end up using comp sci. And then some miscellaneous courses that aren't really in either of these three strands would be astronomy, which is a science class, and then aerospace science, which is in the ROTC 4-year plan.
Okay, so next I'll talk a little bit about the advanced placement versus international baccalaureate program. So generally, if you want to take advanced classes, there's 2 pathways you can take at Westwood. One is AP and one is IB. Generally, they're very similar. The level of content in both classes is about the same. The level of difficulty of the level of difficulty of the content in both pathways is about the same. But there are a few key differences that I'm just gonna go over here. So the first one is AP courses. They're generally they're 1-year courses. So how they work is you spend the whole year kind of learning the material needed for your AP test, which you will take in May in order to get college credit. IB is a little bit different where there are 1-year courses and we call these standard level or SL courses, but there's also 2-year courses called higher level or HL courses. And in case you're kind of wondering how AP and IB stacks up between SL, HL, and AP, an SL IB course usually is not going to cover as much content as an AP course, but an HL IB course will cover more content than the corresponding AP course. The next difference is that AP courses are a lot more standardized. So any school in our country that offers the AP program, all the teachers will teach the exact same thing. IB, there's a little bit more flexibility with what the teachers can teach just because of how the curriculum is designed. For example, there's these things called options in IB courses, which are basically just certain topics that teachers can choose to teach if they want to. The next big difference is between kind of labs and research kind of things. So in AP, you do have a lot of labs, especially in science courses. And with those labs, you have these formal lab reports. IB, you don't really have as many of these formal lab reports. I would say you have about the same number of labs, but not as many reports. But you do have something called the internal assessment. What the internal assessment is it's essentially just an original research project you conduct. And so you're going to conduct this in any IB course you're going to take. Some examples are, I know for Spanish, an example of an internal assessment that we had to do was we had to give about a 5-6 minute commentary about a picture, and then we had a conversation with our teacher for about 20 minutes, and all of it was spontaneous speaking. I know for another thing, for economics, the IAs are kind of their commentaries about certain articles about current events. So it really varies quite widely between the different types of the different subjects in IB. The next difference is has to do with college credit. So for AP tests, pretty much every college in the US is going to offer you college credit for the AP test, assuming you get a high enough score. For IB, college credit's really only awarded for HL tests. So remember I said there was an SL test or an SL course, which is 1 year, and an HL course, which is 2 years. You're not going to get, usually you're not going to get college credit for an SL test. Now there are some colleges that do, but a lot of them don't. And the last difference is just simply the type of test you can take. So AP test, if you're in the AP program, you can take AP tests. And like I mentioned, the AP course is it's specifically designed for that test. So if you're in that class, you're gonna have everything you need to know to do well on that test. For IB classes, there is an IB test. And then you can also take the AP test if you choose, but there is a lot of extra studying involved. One thing to keep in mind is that if you are an AP, you cannot take IB tests, but if you're an IB, you can take AP tests. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go through more specific courses of what someone who wants to do engineering in their future and be a competitive applicant to college for engineering, what courses they should take. So the first one is AP Physics 1. This is an introductory physics course. It's generally referred to as it's kind of the equivalent of a first semester introductory college physics course. This course really focuses on themes from mechanics, so kinematics, forces, rotational motion, and it dives into some other additional topics as well, like electrostatics. Physics 2, it's not really rooted in mechanics. It's more focused on things like fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, optics, magnetism, that kind of thing. And physics C is kind of a mesh of physics 1 and 2, but it has calculus. So physics 1 and physics 2 are going to be algebra based. So you can generally take these when you're in 10th grade. You can take physics 1 when you're in 10th grade, but you can basically take them earlier than you can physics C. So you either need to be currently enrolled in a calculus class, or you have to have already taken a calculus class to take physics C. One more thing I want to point out about the AP physics courses is that it is not required to do both 1 and 2 to take C. Only 1 is required. So actually most kids in Westwood do not take physics 2. In IB, the corresponding course for physics is just called Physics SL, Physics HL. I think SL is similar to Physics 1, HL is more similar to Physics C. I might be a little bit wrong on that, but generally they cover the same content. From what I've heard, Physics SL and HL covers a little bit more, little bit wider range of subjects than Physics 1 and Physics C. The next class we're going to talk about is calculus. So if you any type of engineering, if you are applying for any type of engineering, it's imperative that you try to take at least one calculus course. So the two types of AP calculus courses offered at Westwood are Calculus AB and Calculus BC. The only difference is Calculus AB is essentially the first semester of Calculus BC. So in Calculus AB, you cover 50% of the content that you will cover in BC. So what a lot of kids do is they take AB and then they take BC. So if they take AB and then BC, there's going to be a lot of overlap of material. A lot of other kids who they want to stay in it like really, really advanced math and take all the calculus courses available to them at Westwood will just skip AB and go directly to BC. So you can do that as well, but do know that BC is a very challenging course. On the IB side, the IB calculus course is called Math Analysis. There's an HL and an SL. The curriculum is different from Calculus AB and BC, whereas in AP, it's purely focused on calculus, but in IB, there's some statistics and probability involved. The next course is AP Statistics. It's offered in AP, and then in IB, statistics is also involved. It goes by a different name. It's called IB Applications, but they're very similar courses. The next one I'll talk about is multivariable calculus. So multivariable calculus is the calculus course that comes after BC. I would say the majority of students in Westwood do not take this course. Really, the kids who take this course are ones who they really like math and they really want to be taking advanced math courses. And both IB and AP students will take this. And the last one is chemistry. So, I mean, chemistry is not really, if you're going into like maybe mechanical engineering or something like that, maybe chemistry wouldn't be super, super important. But from my experience, I mean, pretty much everyone takes chemistry. And I think the knowledge you get in that class is a good thing to have. So for IB, we have IB Chemistry, SL, and HL. And then for AP, it's just called AP Chemistry. So next we'll talk about like our extracurricular opportunities.
So the first extracurricular opportunity that I'm going to talk about is varsity and junior varsity robotics. It's the after-school robotics club, and it's closely tied to the robotics course that we mentioned earlier, although you don't have to be in the robotics course to participate in the robotics club after school. So what the after-school club focuses on is two competitions, first tech challenge and first robotics competition. And both of these competitions, they give you a challenge at the beginning of your build season or the beginning of your year. And you have to build a robot that basically satisfies all the tasks and demands that they present to you. So you build competition-ready robots. And it's actually a really safe environment in which students can apply real-world engineering skills. So I know that the way I got into engineering and electrical engineering and even a little bit of mechanical engineering is through robotics. It really helped me develop my interest in engineering. And then you can also attend FIRST competitions, FIRST being the organization that runs the robotics league. So you get to attend competitions with your friends, which is pretty cool. And then you can also, get to experience a lot of teamwork. So you work with a lot of other people on basically developing a robot.
Another club that's offered in Westwood is Aerospace Club. So what you do in this club is basically you work with a team to design a rocket, and then the biggest project of that year is that you get to launch that rocket. So the entire like first semester or so, what you're doing is you're designing like a proper design that has the right aviation concepts and everything applied to the rocket. And then after you actually have a design with CAD and everything, you order parts. And then you do a couple prototypes, and eventually you get something that's ready for launch, and then it happens on the field. It's a relatively small club, but that's more the reason for you to join and expand it, because it has great potential. So definitely join if you're interested in aerospace engineering.
Engineering club is another club at Westwood, and so essentially what this club does is they pick a long-term design challenge at the beginning of the year. In the past, that's been like building a quadcopter. They've done like Rube Goldberg machines. And then in addition to like the long-term project, every so often they'll have like smaller 1 meeting long design challenges. And that's just to like mix it up. You don't really need engineering experience to join this club. It's just to get like an introduction to like the engineering design process. And then another thing that the club does is that if you want to, this club would allow you to participate in team competitions if that's something that you had done in middle school. Libika?
Yeah, so science, physics club, and chemistry club, it's basically in its name that you do science, physics, and chemistry in those clubs. And specifically what it is you come up with your own projects for the entirety of the year. So for science club, it can be anything that you want to do, and then you're going to have to create your own material lists and everything like that, which allows you to create your own project alongside other students that you want to be in your group. And it's just a really cool experience, and you can do really cool experiments there. And then there's another thing called UIL, which is a Texas competition that happens. So you take like a test, and based on that, you can get awards and things like that and win things. So the science test for UIL, it composed of physics, chem, bio, and then in the physics section, there's an astronomy part. And so you take this test and you have the potential of like winning awards, and it looks really good on your apps because it just shows that you really like went all out to study and everything. But the thing about the test is that it changes every year, and there's no like study guide that you can use. You just have to be adept at every single like concept. It's made by PhD teachers, so every year the questions change. But yeah, it's definitely a really good experience, and if you have the chance, you should definitely try it.
And then also there are a couple of computer science related clubs at Westwood. So the first one would be Code Girls, which is just like a safe space for girls to like get introduced to computer science. I believe what they do is that they like assign different like computer science projects. They explore different languages such as HTML, Java, CSS. And then ComSci Club is at every meeting they give a short presentation about a different topic in computer science. So that would be things like binary trees and neural networks and things like that. So it's just to gain more like insight into the subject itself.
One thing is, for those of you guys who are in middle school, it's important that you guys get involved in TAME, engineering or science club. I know KNU also has a science bowl team. So start getting engaged into those science and engineering programs, because those will really help you out in high school.
So one thing that can really help you with engineering in general, and they're also really fun to do on the side, is personal projects. So I know for electrical engineering and computer engineering, one thing that helped me out a lot is Arduino and other breadboarding type projects. You basically get to learn a lot about how to breadboard, and it also integrates with computer science a little bit. So you learn about like basically how to make circuits and stuff on a smaller scale. And then there's also the Raspberry Pi, which is like basically a small computer, and you get to experiment with like different types of electrical connections and different types of coding as well. And then finally, robotic operating system. That's a operating system which you can experiment with at home, and there's a lot of cool projects online that uses that operating system to build robots, actually.
So for those of you guys who are interested in more hands-on engineering, so like mechanical, aerospace, those kind of engineering, it's important that you guys start working on your workshopping skills, your welding skills, CAD skills, really hands-on skills, which it's important that you learn right now so that in college you can apply those more successfully than other students who wouldn't know those skills. So for example, me and Ishan currently are building an electric race car. And because I'm interested in automotive engineering, this is a great way for me to learn more about the subject, as well as show colleges that I am willing to act upon my interests.
Okay, so now we're going to be talking about what you should do during the summer when school isn't there. So along with personal projects, there's a lot of summer programs that you can attend, and one of them is the UT Computer Science Summer Camp. So any summer camp that you do, regardless of whether it's about engineering or not, it's going to be a really insightful experience for you. So I really recommend that you do some type of summer camp like during your summer, because yeah, like just being in a college and being in an academic area, it really allows you to get like a sense of what college is going to be like, meet professor, meet new people, and it's just an overall really good learning experience for you. So I know UT offers a lot of cool summer programs, but almost every college offers some type of summer programs. There's A&M, there's UTD, which are local to us, but then you can go out of state. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but it's definitely going to be worth it at the end. So yeah, definitely contact colleges and things like that for summer camps and ask them any questions that you have.
Mm-hmm. Another way which you can get college research opportunities is just to email the professors directly. A lot of them have internships which they don't really post about, and they're just looking for someone who's interested in that major or going to that school. So it's a great opportunity to get potential research opportunities. So for example, this year I emailed multiple professors at UT, and I even had like an internship lined up before the coronavirus problems happened. So other options is to intern at startups. So especially in Austin, we have a lot of small startup companies, and these are looking for high school interns, which they can work with throughout college, and then potentially hire you at the end of your college. So it's great to work with these smaller companies where you can learn a lot more hands-on. For those of you guys who are interested in aerospace, a great opportunity is the High School Aerospace Scholars. It's a NASA-sponsored program for people who are interested in aerospace engineering and becoming astronauts. So it's a 20-week online course, which you take during the school year. It's about 3 hours a week. And then you apply for a 1-week on-site internship at the NASA facility in Houston. Another option, which is in Austin, is called SES. It's a NASA-sponsored program with UT Austin. And it's you learn about earth science and aerospace engineering. And it's a 2-week on-site internship at the UT Center for Space Research with NASA.
Just want to add one thing. For high school aerospace scholars, just want to make clear that that's only the program is only for high school juniors.
So for recommended volunteering, one of the best ways, at least for me, to get my volunteering hours was hosting first competitions. So basically, this is in association with the robotics club, but you don't have to be in the robotics club to obviously volunteer at these events. But basically, high schools and elementary schools and middle schools, they all host a bunch of different Lego League or first tech competition or first robotics challenge competitions. So you can help volunteer there, and you get a lot of hours, and it's just generally fun to help kids through the STEM process and help them essentially. You can find more information at firstinspires.org for that. And then also there's the Thinkery. So basically at the Thinkery, what you can do is lead a bunch of STEAM activities and act as basically a counselor to a bunch of different kids. Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to add, you're probably noticing that a lot of these volunteering opportunities aren't directly related to engineering, but it's okay because it's really important to keep like a strong overall profile and do things that help the community and other students. So going to that, we have library volunteering. So when I volunteered at the library, they obviously made us work and arrange books and organize, but I also worked during like the summer reading program, which a lot of probably have done. So you have to help like the youth and adults, check off the summer reading like things that are required, give them prizes and things like that. So it's a really enriching experience that like just allows you to be more connected with your community. So that looks really good too. And obviously you can help out with the computer systems and just organizing the data sources in the library and things like that if you want more of an engineering perspective on that. And then for tutoring on STEM subjects, so I work at Mathnasium and then I tutor like kids in India, family, friends, things like that. And it's super important to, I think, that do community work, because it just like shows that everything that you've learned in school, math, science, anything, you're applying that to people and you're actually like making a change, right? So obviously these are just a couple things that you can do, but yeah, volunteering, even if it's not focused on engineering, it's still like really good to do and find things to do that.
Okay, so we will transition to the second part of our presentation, which will be with our guest speaker, Kunal from UT. So just give me a minute to add him to this. Hey, Kunal.
Hey.
Okay. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. So I'll just ask you a few questions about just kind of your experiences with Westwood, but also in college and kind of what you've been doing as a mechanical engineering major. And yeah, so the first question I have is in college, what clubs and initiatives and maybe like internships or research or do you take part in?
Okay, yeah, so club-wise, I am part of Texas Aerial Robotics. They basically make drones for competitions, and they build drones throughout the semesters, and then kind of and participate in the competitions over the summer. Research-wise, I have been kind of moving around from team to team. So for like freshman year, I didn't really know too much, so I believe me with like 10. Yes, and kind of worked with him on a script, a Python script basically. And that lasted about 8 months. Then I kind of moved on. So sophomore year, just this past year, I uh, I joined an aerospace team, and they were doing some simulation stuff with drones. It wasn't too much of a fit for me, so I also did move on from there. And then now, junior year, I'm trying to get more into robotics and using ROS. So I think junior year, that's where I'm headed in terms of research.
Okay, thanks. And so I know at least something I've heard about college is you get a little bit more flexibility with what courses to choose. Like at least in high school, you have kind of a core curriculum you have to take, but in college, you don't really have, I mean, you have some courses required for your degree, but my next question is, what are some college courses that you're taking for fun, maybe not super related to your major, but just purely out of interest?
Yeah, so with UT specifically, they require like a visual and performing arts credit, and they require an undergraduate studies credit. But so my visual and performing arts credit was a class called Music of African Americans. Basically, they just kind of go through the history of rap and how it developed from when it started to where it is now. That was a really cool class to take. For my UGS, I took Ideas of the 20th Century. Basically, it was about 20th century philosophers and how and what ideas they presented, what papers they wrote. So we had to do a good amount of reading and essays for that, but it was pretty interesting. And I also took a class called Dying Languages, which is basically a class about languages that are no more, but like they split into 4 different languages, and throughout the semester you study one of those languages. So
Okay.
it was a pretty cool in-depth experience into what languages were and how they've developed and kind of finished, I guess. But yeah,
It's cool. So the next question I have is actually I think the question that a lot of the attendees have. So one thing pretty much every Westwood student here is going in is it's going to be really hard, but it's going to prepare you for college. You know, you're going to stay up late and do all this work, and so there's this kind of maybe like a stigma or this sort of story around Westwood. And so my next question is, how exactly do you think that Westwood prepared you for UT?
yeah. I mean, so when I was there, I was part of IB for 2 years, and not back then, but it gave a lot of work, especially like A push and pre-calculus, like hard work. Um, so I had to really manage my time with those classes, and I was also taking a bunch of other like science and math classes as well. Um, and it was tough, I would say. But and I've heard this a lot from other UT students too, that they say that UT is easier than Westwood. Um, so yeah, I guess I mean Westwood really did prepare me for time management, um, and it really helped because Westwood is actually I do agree. Westwood, I mean UT is pretty much easier than Westwood.
So kind of related. So you mentioned time management. So what exactly did you do to manage your time during your time at Westwood? And actually, like, what do you do now? Do you use the same strategies when you're at UT or?
I don't really have a strategy, to be honest. Basically, your classes are spread out in college, so you can have one from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., like a 3-hour break or something like that. And if you feel like it, you can get some work done in those breaks, or you can kind of leave them for the night. But what I will say is that time management is key in college, and if you do get behind, it's really hard to get back on track. So that would probably be my biggest advice is like don't get behind in college. And it's not the end of the world if you have to repeat a class, but it's definitely not advisable.
Okay. So next question would be, how do you recommend students who are interested in engineering spend their time in high school outside of obviously academics and school?
Yeah, I mean, so as mentioned before, I guess personal projects are really good to start out with. Start pretty simple. And a website that I actually found in college is called engineeringforfree.com. And it's 4 with like the number 4. If you just look that up, he has classes for like statics, mechanics of solids, C++, thermodynamics, a bunch of like I guess mechie related courses, maybe some other stuff. If you want to take engineering.
Okay. Could you repeat that? I think you cut off at the end, so I didn't hear about the last 15. I heard about engineering, the engineering website, where it offered free courses, but then after that you kind of cut off.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's just basically like a website where he has a bunch of different subjects. So he teaches stuff from like C++ to statics to mechanics of solids, and dynamics and thermodynamics if you're interested in those kind of things. So definitely just I guess watch his videos. They'll give really good insight into what you'll learn in college. I can put the website in the chat.
Oh, sure, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. So our next question, you might have touched on this a little bit, but it was, how did so you were in IB for the first 2 years and then you switched to AP. So how did your IB / your AP courses help you in college more like with the content that you learned? Was the content that you learned, did it kind of help you in your freshman year? Were you able to get some credit for classes that you were able to skip? or did you kind of, because I know some people kind of skip classes and then some they actually just like start from scratch.
Yeah, so I was only IB for the first 2 years, so that didn't really help in terms of college credits. Definitely take as many AP classes as you can. I definitely recommend that because I think so. I'm a sophomore, or I'm gonna be a rising junior now, so I should be done with 50% of my degree. But right now I'm at like 70%. So you can skip quite a lot of classes with your AP credits, and I definitely recommend you take as many as possible.
All right. So I know Sohan talked about this a little bit, and you also mentioned it. But personal projects for engineering are really important. So did you have any sort of personal projects you did in your time at Westwood, or maybe even in college now?
So Westwood, when I was in Westwood, I didn't think I was going to go to engineering. I was in the medical field phase for a little bit, then I got into the science phase. So I kind of was interested in physics, like
Oh,
the past 2 years of high school. So I guess I just kind of read a lot about the research there. I tried to join a physics research group. I did the UT summer camp for physics. But that's kind of where my head was at in high school, not so much in engineering. But later on, then in college, it got me interested in engineering. Um, so I just joined some clubs, and I guess that's the extent of my personal projects. But I do definitely recommend that you do what you're interested in.
and as we keep going, if anyone has questions for Kanal, just go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and I'll see if I can get to them. Give me 1 minute. I'm trying to pull up the Q&A here.
I can see them.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go through a few of these, and then I'll ask some more of the prepared questions. But the first one was for Kunal. Can you tell us what the undergrad major options are at UT? So like if you want to become like you're doing mechanical engineering, but what other I guess fields of engineering are offered at UT?
Yeah, so there's mechanical, aerospace, biomedical, chemical, electrical, and electrical also encompasses computer engineering. So you do electrical for 2 years, and then you can specify if you want to be electrical engineering or computer engineering. There's architectural engineering and there's civil engineering. And then within civil engineering, you can do environmental engineering.
Another question is, so what math and science courses did you take at Westwood?
Yeah. Okay. So I started off with algebra 2. Like most people are. I took pre-calculus. I took calculus AB, BC, and statistics. Science-wise, I took so I was in pre-IB for 2 years. So I went through like the biology, chemistry, physics in 2 years. Then I went to AP Physics 1, AP Physics C, AP Psychology, AP Environmental Science, AP Chemistry. I think that's it. Yeah.
And another question was, so you mentioned that you did pre-IB in the first 2 years at Westwood, and then you switched to AP, which is something that a good amount of students do. And what they were wondering is, can you explain why exactly you made the switch?
Yeah, I wasn't huge on writing and reading too much. I didn't like social studies that much. I was more math and science focused, and with IB, they kind of make you take like TOK or something, which is a cool class. But I didn't like to read and write essays as much. And since I was interested in the math and science route, I kind of went through AP and took as many science and math courses as I could.
Okay. Another question is, so I mean, this is kind of a interesting question, but what do you like about college when compared to Westwood, and then what's something that you do not like about college? Is there anything you prefer from Westwood over college, or?
Okay, so I guess I can start with what I like about college. There's a huge diversity of people in UT, especially because it's a huge school. So the diversity of people there is amazing, and I like it. Um, I would say also the scheduling of classes, the free time. You know, like you get breaks throughout the day, which is really nice. Whether you want to like chill or do homework, maybe you just have a lot of flexibility in what you can of what you want to do. Um, I don't know if I like anything about Westwood more than I like about UTB, to be honest. But I know Westwood has changed since I was there, so
Yeah,
uh,
definitely.
yeah.
Okay. So this is a little bit more college focused, like so if there's any older attendees, but it would be how many I guess this is not really engineering related, but in general for someone interested in engineering, kind of how many schools should they target when applying to college?
I would say over like 12 or 15 is kind of overkill. Um, I applied to 10, and I think that's a pretty good solid number. Um, and I would say definitely like even if you know you don't want to go out of Texas, just apply because you never know. Um, so I would say like 7 to like 12.
Okay. So another question for you from the attendees, it's at UT, what's kind of your experience in selecting classes? So like for classes you want to take, are they kind of backed up so you get put on a wait list, or do you generally get the classes that you want to take?
For mechanical engineering, there's like so many students, so a lot of the classes are not available. This is why you want to take AP classes so you can skip the first few classes, because as you take more classes, you get more priority for getting newer classes. Um, so, for example, the first ME class you take is engineering design, and I did not take that my freshman year because I wasn't able to get in my first semester. But what ended up happening was I took a Maymester, which is basically a summer study abroad for 1 month, and I took that class in Germany last year. So it was a really cool experience. And but yeah, usually if you have enough credits, you can get classes that you want to take. You will have to do some adjusting sometimes because they're either closed, waitlisted, or for whatever reason, yeah, canceled or whatever. So definitely like be flexible about when you take your classes.
All right. And our last question is, so a lot of our attendees they're going into Westwood, so they're not in Westwood yet. So they're starting next year, starting next few years. So if you could give it like any advice to your high school self, what would it be?
That's a deep one. I would say don't worry so much about what other people are doing. Focus on yourself as much as possible and do the best that you can. Because it can be kind of demeaning if you like compare yourself to others, which is what Westwood I think does a lot. So just be aware of that.
Okay. Thanks so much, Kanal. I
No problem.
really appreciate your time, and I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure the attendees did as well.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'll invite the Westwood student panel back, and we will go through the questions you guys have typed up. And if you have questions, still feel free to go ahead and ask them. And it can be about anything. Doesn't necessarily doesn't have to be about engineering. It can be about or it can be, I mean, maybe high school, maybe not college for us, but yeah. Okay, so I'll go to the very top. So, okay. So the first question was, I heard that you need multivariable calculus for engineering applications at colleges. Is that true? Can someone speak on that?
So I only took Calculus BC, and I got into UT Austin's engineering program. I also got into some of the other schools that I applied to, so I definitely do not think that taking multivariable calculus is a requirement. And in fact, a lot of people who are attending UT as freshmen in the engineering program are retaking Calculus 1 or even taking it for the first time, and that would be equivalent to Calculus AB. So I wouldn't worry too much.
One thing about a lot of like stuff for college is that when people say, is this necessary or is this absolutely necessary for college? There's no like one, a lot of the time there's no one right answer. It's more along the lines of this helps and this boosts your resume and your college stuff, but there's no one right answer as to whether this is necessary for me to get into a good engineering school.
Okay, so our next question was, we talked a lot about clubs in school, and the question is, do any of these clubs give you credit for any classes or any associated with any classes?
So in general, most clubs do not give you school credit for the classes, but some are associated with classes. So as we spoke previously, the robotics club is directly associated with the robotics class, but you don't need to be a part of the class in order to be part of a club, and vice versa. So they are directly associated, but you do not get credit for the club in terms of school credit.
And I think your biggest motivation for joining a club should not be like to get credit. It should just be like, this is something you're interested in, or like this is something, yeah, basically like something you're interested in, something you want to explore more. And then once you get into like your junior and senior year, it can be really helpful to like have those clubs or leadership positions in those clubs to put on your like resume and your college applications. So yeah.
Okay. So our next question was, can you explain how the foreign language program works in IB, the IB program, specifically IB Spanish 3 and 4? So I can go ahead and answer this one. So one of the differences we did not mention earlier between IB and AP is IB requires you to take take 4 years of a language. So that means for Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, and Spanish 4. I think for AP, you just have to take 2, and pretty much any other program other than IB is just 2. But I think most kids even who are in AP, they take a lot of them, like I think all of them pretty much take 3, and a good portion take 4 as well. And in terms of testing, you take your IB test at the end of IB Spanish 4. So what most students do is you take IB Spanish 4 or whatever language you're taking. IB Spanish 4 you will take in your junior year, and then you will take the SL test if you are taking the SL test in that year. And then there is an IB Spanish 5 if you want an HL, and you would take that as a senior. Okay, so the next question was, at the elective courses, there was a chart shown with the whole high school path recommended to take for engineering. What if I am taking all the courses listed in the freshman column in my sophomore year of high school? So I think they're talking about if you take your elective courses, like the introductory ones, as a sophomore rather than a freshman. So is there a drawback to that, or?
One thing is, I actually did that for the engineering pathway. I took Introduction to Engineering Design, not as a freshman, but actually as a sophomore. And I didn't really see that big of a drawback with it, because what I was able to do, and I don't know if this is applicable to other people's situation, but specifically for me, what I did was I took Principles of Engineering and Digital Electronics in my junior year. And digital electronics you can actually take even without following the engineering pathway. You can take it if you're taking computer science. So personally for me, that's what I did, but I didn't really see that big of a drawback to it, because eventually, now that I'm a rising senior, I'm going to be taking engineering design and development with everybody else. I just had to double up on those 2 middle courses in junior year.
Also, the teachers definitely like work with you. I remember my freshman year, there was a junior in my Introduction to Engineering Design class, and he was taking Introduction to Engineering Design and Principles of Engineering both at the same time in his junior year. And that way he could take like the engineering capstone course and one of the other like engineering courses like aerospace or something his senior year. So there's a lot of like flexibility in there.
So next question is, if you were to take comp sci, so complete the comp sci pathway for 4 years in Westwood, if you are someone who is interested in engineering, would you need to take another engineering course in addition to comp sci? Do you think that would be needed for your application? Like, let's say you wanted to do mechanical engineering or something along those lines. Would you need to take, like, and let's say you want to take comp sci, would you need to take another engineering?
Yeah, so again, like all the previous kind of things that we were talking about, nothing is necessary, right? Everything's recommended. So if you do want to go into engineering, specifically mechanical, it's good to take an engineering class, high level math classes. If you want to go to CS, it's recommended that you take CS classes, but nothing's required. A lot of what you do in college, you're going to have to do anyway. You're going to take college classes and everything, so you'll eventually get caught up. As for necessary, nothing's necessary, but there's a lot of recommended stuff. So just do what you're interested in and do what you like, because that's the most important thing.
One thing I will add is that it's probably a very good idea, although again, it's not necessary. But if you're planning to go into electrical and computer engineering, it might be a good idea to take computer science courses as well as engineering courses, specifically digital electronics, because that covers the most in that.
So the next question, more related to college, but so do you have to be in the top 6% to get into UT?
Definitely not, because I know a lot of people who were not in the top 6% who did get into UT. And then I know people in the top 6% who didn't get the major they wanted at UT. So it really honestly depends on the strength of your application and especially on your essays. And yeah, so it's helpful to be in the top 6% because you're guaranteed that you'll get a major at UT, but it's not like the end all be all of getting in. And yes, to the person in the chat, Texas A&M is a very good school, especially for engineering and computer science.
And just to add a little bit on to what Anida said about UT, so I think at Westwood, there's kind of, especially for the younger batch, at least when I was coming in, there's like this real emphasis that you have to be in the top 6%. You like, if you want to go to UT, if you want to go, like, if you even want to have a chance at UT, you have to be in the top 6%. That's absolutely not true. So I just want to make that clear. The top 6%, all that means is that you're guaranteed admission to UT for, I think it's a liberal arts major. I'm not completely sure, but basically what it means is you're not guaranteed the major of your choice. Okay. Next one is, so for someone wanting to be a software engineer, what out of maybe the specific courses we talked about, what would you think are the most important to take at Westwood?
I think the computer science courses would be really helpful, and then like Ishan said, digital electronics would be helpful because I know like electrical engineering and software engineering are kind of similar, at least in like their prereqs. So.
Another thing is that if you want to get a lot of the practical side, because the classes mostly cover the theoretical side of software engineering and algorithms and such, but if you want to get some of the practical side, I'd suggest you consider joining robotics, because a lot of the stuff in robotics, like you can join basically the programming team and basically a lot of experience with software development.
Okay, so next question, we can have multiple panelists answer this, but do you guys have free time while you're in Westwood? Do you guys like play video games or any of that sort of thing? Maybe what do you do in your free time? Things like that. And I'll just kind of answer, yeah, we do have free time. It's a bit over exaggerated how much work we have. There are certain periods where you have a lot of work, but it's not year round. Okay, so does someone want to speak on this one?
Yeah, if you're able to manage your time, you should be mostly free to do other extracurriculars. So, for example, I know me, Ishan, and Lipika are in robotics, and sometimes that can be 5-6 hours a day after school. But even with that, we're still able to keep track of school. It's just as long as you manage it proper and you don't get behind on activity or important assignments.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, like, I have a special case. I just moved here this year, and so a lot of like the engineering pathways and things like that, and a lot of like Westwood in general, you have to get used to a culture when you're coming to a new school. So I mean, for me, like, I didn't, obviously I attended 9th and 10th grade, so I knew what like high school was like, but every school is different. So just managing that workload for me specifically this year was a lot. But overall, like, there's like a rhythm that you get to, and like me being new, I can attest to like what freshmen must feel like in a new high school as well. So yeah, like Westwood, they have this thing where, you know, you do your homework, you have tests every week. So once you kind of get into the rhythm, it's easy for you to manage your time. And then obviously any free time you have, you should be doing clubs, you should be doing you know, just anything you can for personal projects and to make your application stronger. I don't know, I personally didn't have that much time to hang out with friends or play video games.
But also have fun. Don't just do extracurriculars. Also, I want to add that, like, so if you, like, you're gonna have as much time to spend on like other things as you give yourself. Like, one thing I tended to do in high school was I would spend like an inexorbitant amount of time on like notes and stuff, like time that nobody else was spending. So for me, like, there were times when I had significantly less free time than other people, but that was like something that I could have controlled. Like, I could have it's like, you don't have to be perfect, and I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. And once you do like internalize that, you do tend to have more free time, and you tend to like have more time for yourself and to spend with your friends. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind.
Okay. And one more thing I kind of wanted to mention is make sure you guys are taking care of yourself when you're in Westwood. So there are times it can get overwhelming. I know, you know, with just kind of this immense amount of pressure on you. So, you know, if you ever feel like, you know, you're getting overwhelmed, talk to your parents, talk to your teachers. The teachers are very, very nice at Westwood, extremely supportive, and they'll lend a listening ear if you have any sort of issues. But just don't get overwhelmed. Don't get too caught into all the rank grade kind of stuff. You know, just once in a while, what I like to do is kind of take a step back. If I'm getting stressed about a test, just look at the bigger picture, right? This one test is important, obviously, but it's not going to define my future. So just make sure you sometimes you don't get caught up in all of that, and just really make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Also, something to add to that is that some teachers, like, if you talk to them and you tell them like what's going on and like why you're overwhelmed, some of them are really good about like giving you like extensions on stuff. Like in European history, at least for IB, like if I was out of town all weekend for like a robotics competition, I could tell my teacher, and then she would be like, yeah, like you can have an extra like couple of days to do this homework assignment. So I definitely would suggest like talking to your teachers.
All right. So the next question was, would you recommend us to take more AP or IB courses? So I can.
I
Yeah, go
can
ahead,
answer
Ishan.
that one. I think it really depends on whether you're trying to mainly do the AP curriculum versus the IB curriculum. So the IB curriculum, I will say that it's a lot more like writing and like social focused. So you get a lot of good experience there in terms of like writing essays and doing internal assessments, which are basically just really long essays. And then the AP curriculum is more centered if you want to go math and science, although the IB curriculum does have that too. So I would just think about which path you want to take and choose AP or IB, and then spread out your AP and IB. And one more thing is that if you're taking IB courses, that doesn't ban you from taking AP courses. So you can still take AP courses.
One thing to note also is if you're interested in engineering, like the AP physics classes prepare you better, just because in engineering, like at colleges, you'll have to take calculus-based physics, but the IB physics curriculum, even like physics HL, that's all algebra-based. So there's like drawbacks and benefits to both AP and IB.
Okay, so next one was, when is the best time to do an internship?
Yeah, so I wanted to answer this one, but basically I've done like 2 so far, and so both times I did it was in the summer because that's the time that you have free time, the majority of it, and so you can actually really concentrate on what you're doing. Just think of an internship honestly as an opportunity. It's not something that you're just doing for apps. You really like the reason you should take an internship is really to learn, and the only time you can do that is when you have like a free like mind your mental health is good and you have like just free time for yourself and everything. That's the only time you can actually concentrate. Most internships, like, okay, for example, the first one I took lasted 2 years. So obviously you have to allocate some time during the school year. And another one, if it lasts, most internships are like 8 weeks. They're not just going to let you do it for a week, right? You can't just do it at random points whenever you'd like. It obviously depends on what the company wants to offer you. So with that, it's a possibility it's going to run into school. And again, like it's just of you managing time. But the best time to reach out to college professors and small companies is before your school year ends. So if you're going to be coming freshman year, right a month before summer starts is a great time to start emailing and everything. And then in summer you should do your internship. That honestly, that's the best in my opinion.
And I never did an internship, and I'm absolutely fine. You know, like going to college, it's a party. Yeah, don't feel pressured to. I can see you laughing at me, Sohan. Don't feel pressured to like think you need to do an internship or research because like everyone has their own thing. Like there's a lot of things that you can do to make yourself stand out without thinking that you have to like actively pursue things like internships and research.
So the next one, I think it's for Sohan. It's about the aerospace pathway. So the question is, can you do aerospace 1 in freshman year?
So in terms of the engineering course, it's aerospace engineering. That's a junior only course. I guess seniors could take it, but that's if you decide to start 1 year late and you decide not to do engineering design and development. There's also a course called engineering science, but that's with the ROTC program at Westwood. ROTC, it's a very different program than every other program at Westwood. It's a U.S. Air Force sponsored program. And in terms of career, it's really good if you intend on going into the U.S. Air Force. You end up with a lot of, I guess, military knowledge. I'm part of the ROTC course, and so you learn a lot about like military history and like basic military protocol. But you also learn a little bit about aerospace science. So that's a good course if you're considering like a career in the U.S. Air Force, or you intend to go to U.S. Air Force Academy or the Naval Academy or some other military school. So that's the aerospace science course that you could take in freshman year.
Okay, so the next question, I'll answer this one. It's just purely about the math kind of pathway. So do you go from algebra 2 directly to calculus AB? No, there's a intermediate course that's called pre-calculus. So you take that after algebra 2 and before calculus AB. The next one is about credentialing for foreign languages. So I think what this means is some students will test out of certain, I guess like the beginner level courses. Did any of you do that? And would you be able to like kind of speak on how it worked? I didn't do that. Okay, so I can, from my understanding is for credentialing, I think all the people I know who have tried to test out earlier, they usually still take or like they usually will take the IB or the AP course. So at least if you're an IB, I'm not completely sure on this, but even if you were to somehow test out of IB Spanish 4, you would still have to take the SL test at the end of your junior year. So if you're an IB, I think you would have to take the IB foreign language course in your junior or your senior year. if you're an AP and you test out like all the way till 3 or 4, then there's no need for you to unless you want to. And so the next one's also about IB Spanish. Okay, so it's about IB Spanish, and what it's saying is so IB Spanish SL is Spanish 4, IB Spanish 3 is pre-IB Spanish. So I did mention that most people take IB Spanish 4 as juniors, which must mean that you would take Spanish 1 in your middle school years. So is it required for you to take Spanish 1 in your middle school? No, it's not. You can take it as a freshman. If you're an IB, that just means you'll take your foreign language all 4 years. The next question is, do you know if it's possible to transfer into IB at Westwood from an AP school?
Yes, actually, it is possible to transfer into IB. I've heard of kids transferring from an AP school such as Round Rock High School or Stony Point into Westwood, which is an IB school.
Yeah, so when I moved here, my old school was an AP. So when we come here, like the guidance counselor would basically like ask you whether you want to take the IB or AP pathway. So you still have an option of everything, but you do get wrapped in. The thing is, if you do come in 11th or 10th grade, I don't think you have a choice to go back to AP. You have to stick with IB. So that's the only like misfortune, I guess, the con.
Yeah, that's
also, I know it's possible to join IB after sophomore year, even if you didn't take pre-IB. I know one person who did that. It's definitely much harder, but it is possible if you like absolutely think you have to take IB and you like didn't take the IB classes freshman and sophomore year.
The main purpose of pre-IB and pre-AP in 9th and 10th grade is to just test the waters about and basically help you make that decision of whether you want to go into an AP pathway or an IB pathway.
Okay, and I just wanted to emphasize this one more time. If you are gonna transfer to Westwood to take the IB curriculum, I think Lipika mentioned this, but you have to stay in IB to stay at Westwood. So I think the two ways you can transfer to Westwood if you're not zoned for Westwood is if you take IB or if you take a specific dance course. Don't remember exactly which one it is, but
also piano.
Okay. Okay. So it's for Sohan. So what does the robotics class entail that's different than the club? So yeah.
Yeah, so the way we've planned the robotics classes is that you'll be still going to the same robotics competition as the club, but in addition to working on your robot, you'll also be learning about CAD, about the engineering design process, and other basic engineering topics which you will cover in your engineering class. So you'll be covering you'll be doing the same activity as the after-school program, except you'll be doing it during class with some after-school time, which will be required for that class. And then whenever you get into robotics 2 and robotics design and development, you will still work on the same robot as the after-school varsity team. The varsity team at Westwood is juniors and seniors, and the juniors and seniors who are also taking the class will be working on that same robot in the same team as the after-school program.
One thing is that the robotics curriculum for the class is a lot more organized than after school. And you will be encouraged to basically participate in the after school activities for robotics, but the curriculum itself, the way it's planned right now is you'll have basically one curriculum day and then a few curriculum days and then also a few hands-on days where you can actually work on the robot and apply the skills that you learned in the class.
So the next question is also for Ishan, but it's what are some comp sci classes you can take online or during the summer to help you learn coding? And if anyone wants to answer this as well.
So for comp sci classes you can take online, a really easy way to start out, the way I started out was with JavaScript on Khan Academy. And then I moved up into higher level programming languages or like more complicated programming languages such as Java or Python. There is one website that I would really recommend. It's by a Leander teacher. It's called programmingbydoing.com. Programmingbydoing.com. And basically, that website helped me learn like the basics of Java and really get into the object-oriented side, even before I took AP Comp Sci A or Comp Sci 3. So stuff like that is really helpful. Also, Code Academy, if you haven't heard of it, that's another website where you can learn to code. And then finally, Coursera has a lot of great courses. Right now, I'm taking one about algorithms from Princeton. So Coursera also has a lot of great courses. So Coursera, Udemy, Code Academy, and then programmingbydoing.com are probably good decisions.
Yeah, I just want to add, so I started with HTML, which is like one of the most basic skeleton languages, and you add CSS to that, you can add Java to that, use Glitch to make your own websites, do your own projects. ID Tech is a great summer program, Girls Who Code, obviously, things like that. And then specifically, like if you want to do the practical side, definitely do hackathons, which is you basically use what you know about your coding and you come up with projects in that 24-hour day span. And it's a really good experience to start applying. You literally, you don't need to be really adept at like coding. It's okay if you're basic. The only way that you can learn and the only way you can develop things is if you get hands-on experience, is what I've learned. So definitely like do summer programs for CS.
A few more extracurricular things that I just got reminded of. USACO, the USA Computing Olympiad, that's a really good basically programming competition where you are given a challenge and you have to solve it, and you can move up from bronze to silver to gold. And it's really good to put on your college apps what level you are in USACO, but it's also really fun. Stuff like that. And then I know Google has a code jam, a coding competition. Basically, it's similar to USACO. So stuff like that generally helps out. I'd say don't get too overwhelmed by the bigger like competitions. Start small, like for something like HTML, JavaScript, even Java. Start small and then just work your way up. Don't get too overwhelmed by the more complicated stuff until you work your way up from the bottom.
Ishan, before I forget, could you send the links that you mentioned, like the learning by doing and the Code Academy and things like that in
Definitely.
the chat? All right. Okay. So the next question was, what was the toughest math class each of you had to take so far? So I guess we can go around the table, but I mean, I expect my answer will be a lot same as a lot of you, but for me it was pre-calculus in 10th grade. It's basically just the way that the course is supposed to prepare you for calculus, so it ends up being a lot more difficult than the actual calculus courses. So a lot of kids struggle through that, but you know, you hit 11th and 12th grade so much easier, and like literally everyone says that. I've never heard anyone who's not been like calculus is so much easier after taking pre-cal. I do also want to mention though, if you skip AB, if you skip calculus AB and you go to calculus BC, I think the jump is, I've heard that skipping is kind of like calculus BC, taking calculus BC without AB is kind of like taking pre-calculus again. But anyone else want to talk on this?
Yeah, so I actually did take calculus BC without taking AB. So yeah, that was a really challenging jump, but honestly, like if you just study, I think it's doable. I had other friends that did that. We all got like good grades in the class. It depends on how much like work and effort you're willing to put in, and just like know, like don't compare yourself to the kids who did take AB, because yeah, the first semester of BC is gonna be much easier for them, but then like by second semester you're all on like the same level. And yeah, most kids do think pre-cal is hard, but I personally had an easy time with it, so I think it's just like it depends on the person.
Yeah, so yeah, I'd agree with pre-calculus was relatively easy for me. Took calculus AB this year, and that was, I'd say, like one of the most difficult courses. I mean, it's like a higher level of math, so that makes sense. I skipped geometry, I think, from 9th to 10th grade. So that was, it was like a 3-week course. So obviously it was really fast paced. And at the time, like obviously geometry isn't the like my favorite subject, mostly because it's a lot of like thinking in your head about visuals and stuff. And I'm more of a logical thinker. So that's probably why that course was like difficult for me, but yeah.
the hardest course for me was probably I have to agree with Rohan here. Pre-calculus. Pre-calculus. I think it was really hard for me, but I think it's necessary to get over that like bump in the road because it actually taught me a lot of valuable like math stuff that I still use in my classes today. And one thing I will say is that I know, and this is just generally here. Uh, I know that AP math courses are slightly faster paced than a lot of IB math courses. Like right now I'm taking Math HL and it's slower paced. So if you're able to keep up with that fast pace, then I suggest you take an AP math course. But if you're like slower, uh, if you're not if you're not as good as that at that kind of stuff, I'd suggest checking out IB courses.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Rohan and Ishan on this and say that I think pre-calculus was my hardest math class I've taken. I think the reason for that is that pre-calculus covers a lot. So it covers algebra 1, it covers algebra 2, and then you go back and go over a little bit of geometry, and then you also learn the basics of calculus, but it really prepares you for the first semester of calculus.
Okay, so I think this will be our last question. If any of you have any other questions, I'll put this in the chat after I'm speaking, but you can always email us, and I'll answer, and we'll answer it. The last question, and so this is to Anida, and she's like, congrats on the UT admit. When did you start applying for college? When did you take the SAT, and then the same for the rest of the panel?
I took my SAT August of my junior year, and then I took SAT subject tests in June after my junior year, and so I took physics and math 2, and then I took my ACT the month after that, and then that is also when I started drafting all of my essays. For me personally, drafting essays takes me a really long time. Like the first draft is like really quick, and then I rewrite the same essay like 3 times. So it definitely took me a while to do the essays. So I would suggest starting as soon as possible on those. The prompts generally stay the same from year to year. And then for SAT subject tests, I would know which ones you're planning on taking before you start your junior year, because some schools have specific like tests they want you to take. Like I know like Caltech like says you have to take like math and then a science. And some schools even want you to take like 3 tests, one of them not being a math or science. So it's a good idea to like look and see like, do you want to take like the US history one? Do you want to take like a language? And if you end up taking like US history your sophomore year, you want to be able to take that subject test like right after you take that class. So like look ahead for those.
All right. I think that's all the questions we have time for. But I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thanks to all of the students at the student panel. Thanks to Kanal for sharing his insights. And I will email a recording and a copy of the presentation that we went over. And seeing how a lot of the questions were on comp sci, I will also email, I'll also include in the email our presentation about comp sci, and then check our website. You can find the recording for that as well. Actually, I'll just include the recording in the email as well. But anyways, thanks to everyone for joining. Hope everyone got something out of this. And again, if you ever have any questions, just feel free to email us. Email is www.bigbraintutoring@gmail.com. Okay, thanks everyone.